I'd like to start today by talking about... Never mind.
I can see all of you.
What's up, Martin?
You ready?
How you doing?
You ready?
What do you mean? I thought we'd started. This is our light, joking, banter, entertaining intro bit.
I mean, this can be the intro. I don't mind. Anything can be the intro.
Yeah, this is what it is.
For the highest quality podcast we've ever known.
Can be the intro. I'll do this real quick.
Welcome to the Origin Pod.
If only there was like an emotion that we could use to
Episode
describe
7.
a European podcast.
7.
Alright, hello everyone and welcome to episode 7 of the pOGcast, the greatest...
Really? That's what this is called?
Yeah, P and then
How did I not know that before coming
It
on
stands
here?
for piece of garbage.
That makes so much
We try
more
again. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 7 of the pOGcast, Origen's podcast, but not, as you can see, with Origen members other than myself right now. I'm Deficio, the general manager of Origen, and I'm joined by Daniel Drakos, who just casted his first Worlds semi-final.
Ooh.
And I'm also joined by Mr. Europe himself.
Who also cast his first
Who also
ever
just
Worlds
casted his first
Euro.
semi-final. It was, of course, the G2 versus SKT. For a second, my brain said FPX, but that's next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit too early. How did it feel to cast?
How does it? It was fun.
It was really
exhausting.
It's really tense. When you're actually emotionally invested on like a personal level because you cast a team all year, it makes it a lot harder to cast. Not because I'm like worried about bias, but because like I'm actually like in every team fight like clenching my abs. A lot of tension in my body.
The problem I had was game 3 specifically. I was just kind of like watching as a fan, you know. I wasn't really thinking. A lot of the time, I forgot I was casting. I was like, "Damn, this is a great game of League of Legends."
Right.
Then Jack would point at me, and I was like, "Oh fuck!"
Oh yeah, I need to talk. You gotta say something. That is tough.
I got really lost in it.
Did I actually introduce you by name, or did I just say Mr. Europe?
You said Mr. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Mr.
What's
That's
that?
enough.
It's Vedius, of course.
Hashtag
If I'm
Mr.
Mr. Europe
Europe.
and your European fans don't know who I am, then
Hopefully
I've
they know
clearly
who you are.
failed.
They hopefully know who you are.
Who is this nobody with Deficio and Drakos?
That could definitely happen. I mean, this is
Do you like how I
technically
included myself so I could pretend that I was?
It's clever.
wasn't
I
a
liked
nobody?
it. Yeah, respect it.
Euphoria hosts reunited. The original EU podcast.
I'm one of the worst ever Euphoria guests ever.
And actually, we were never on Euphoria together.
No, you banned me.
Yes.
I came on one time and you said I'm never allowed on again.
You were only on, I believe, when I wasn't there.
No, because you had the gavel and the judge thing. It was you and
Oh,
Dracos.
yeah. But
and
I was
then
a
Frost.
guest there.
So he was a guest there. It was before.
Yeah,
they
but
already
even
banned
that one was, you gave me lots of feedback.
Did I?
Because Frost and I kept talking.
you. You did keep fighting over really
Oh, yeah, it was a
small
really
things.
bad
But I
episode.
also blamed the structure. Just saying, Mr. Host.
To
The
be
lack
fair,
of structure.
we started with a plan, and then Frost said, "What about this plan?"
Yeah,
And I went,
you were
"That sounds
sure,
pretty
yeah, that
good."
sounds great.
Forgetting like me spending a decent amount of time thinking, "Okay, why is this a good plan?" You know why it's a good plan? Because it saved you from yourselves,
So
and I regret doing it your way.
Let's talk about the important stuff.
Okay, let's talk about the important thing. The fact that G2... I was going to make some...
Did you
something
forget?
further-
I was
No,
like,
I was
it's
going to
like-
say that Origin
No,
took a game
That's
off
the
G2.
thing. So, my mind, because he now put me on the spot.
Yeah.
My mind was like racing. Okay, say something funny.
Good thing we don't pay to speak for a living.
But I didn't have anything funny
God
ready. So let's just stick to the actual important thing. G2 beating SKT.
Sure.
G2 making the world final. Obviously, I think it's stuck with the 3-1 kind of script that's happened all the time.
Could have been 5
I also
games.
kind of feel like we were robbed from a game 5,
Yeah.
just like we were actually in the other semi-final between FPX and IG. But as a European fan, I don't really care.
Yeah, I'm not,
I'll take the 3-1.
4 games is a solid. I'm content.
And they were close games.
Yeah.
Like
Too
mega
close.
close games. All of them, actually.
Trevor hit us with the stat where G2 is had the major lead 2.3% of all of the series.
That's a very low percentage.
That's a very low percentage.
And keep in mind, a major lead is 51.5% of the golden game, which in the early game is like a single kill advantage, 2 kill advantage, which you would think that they would have,
Right.
but it was always traded so perfectly for farm that they never actually had a huge margin.
Yeah, it was. What was impressive was how I need to watch it back because I honestly don't remember.
I mean, this is like 2 or 3 hours later, basically.
Yeah, but it's all a blur.
Yeah.
Martin. What you gotta understand is it's just like
What we did, so the game ended, we wrapped up some story meetings, then we jumped in Vedius' car, we drove straight to a place that has Korean fried chicken, brought it back here to Drakos' home, so you can see it's not my hotel room like last week. We're still on the road, but it is now at Drakos' place. Ate the chicken, and now we are recording the podcast.
Yeah,
so it's only been a couple of hours.
I've literally forgotten everything. But what I do remember is like thoughts that I had, which were G2 were very good at coming back into games. And that's going to sound really surface level, but what I seem
That's
to
all we're
remember
looking for
was,
here anyway.
Yeah, but what I seem to remember was even though we could be critical of SKT, I felt like the way in which G2 create pressure on the map almost makes you second guess yourself. And like you could probably speak more about this being that you played against G2 a lot, but it's almost like you think, okay, it's 5 mid, we can just push down mid, we have Baron, but it never really feels like you can actually just push 5 down as mid, and like there's always something on the map that you're like, oh wait, why do we not have 2 pushing side lanes? Why do we not have any vision here?
And we had a tangible example of that. It was a game 3 where SKT had the Baron down to 2k health, and there's literally no one from G2 around. Like Jankos is literally miles away. Like guys, I can't make it. I don't think I'm gonna make it. And SKT's like, okay, that's fine. I guess we'll just back off then. We wouldn't want to ruin a perfectly good 50-50. And they like just didn't go for it, and they didn't have the information, and so when they were in doubt, they just assumed G2 was in the right position, rather than, and that's fine to give your opponent the benefit of the doubt. But as mentioned on cast, they're going to be hitting themselves after that one.
For sure. I think SKT, obviously SKT will be extremely disappointed because they actually had the lead in so many of the games, and they were in really good positions to win. The game 3, I believe, was the Nico mid lane game.
Yep.
No,
that was one. That was one.
Game 1.
That was game 1.
Game 3 was the Oriana game.
It's only been 3
Game
hours.
3 was...
Oh, it's the Rise was Oriana. You're right.
Yes.
But even the Nico game, they were actually like in control.
Yeah.
And then Caps 1 and 2 on Rise, he starts split pushing, and they're playing so slow SKT, they don't actually get to force the objective they want, and G2 just keep finding ways back. But that's the thing about them. Whenever G2 are behind, they will never turtle. They will never like wait for you to do something. They will like be super proactive at trying to force a play somewhere else on the map and be like, oh, okay, so you're stronger than us as 5, or 2 of your carries are stronger than our 2 carries, but what about the 3rd carry? Oh yeah, he's not stronger. Great, so we're gonna play over here where he's at, and like they will keep trying to find these ways. And I think like I don't think you can teach that.
No.
I think you just need players who are obviously, they have like a fundamentally strong level when it comes to like knowledge of the game. But then I think it's like that instinct.
Instinct is the word I think of, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like this whole like, okay, we made a mistake, or we lost the fight. Okay, what should we think about now? Okay, just what's the next play we can make? What's the next play? What's the next play? Well, all the time.
And I think it's something that you think a lot about when you think of learning in a traditional set. This is something I learned a lot when you talk about like even writing in high school, where it's like you learn the rules, grammar, punctuation, whatever, so that if you're later as a master writer or whatever going to break the rules, you know what rule you're breaking. And that's important because there's plenty of teams that are like amateur teams that just make objectively wrong choices, and that doesn't make them like G2. It's that G2 knows the rules, they know what the objective correct play is or the textbook play is, and they can choose to ignore that, understand why they're ignoring that, and maybe you say consciously, maybe they're all macro geniuses, or maybe you say it's unconscious and it's that
they're definitely
thing.
smart.
They are smart.
They're definitely smart about the game. I know at least Perks picked up a lot of things from like the original G2 lineup when they won 4 splits in a row. And they were kind of, actually at that time, funny enough, G2 were famous for playing slow, consistent. Yeah. They would like stop you from doing something, and then we would just wait for like one big fight, and they would win that one fight. Sven or something would pop off in a late game fight, and then it would win, and people were not actually that excited, which is also why when they went to Worlds with the original G2 lineup those 2 years, and they played best of ones against teams who did like different things, who were more aggressive in the early game, G2 was like could just kind of collapse in the middle.
I ultimately think this was SKT's problem. I sent you a message on Twitter last night where I said, or yesterday, I can't remember, but I said there's something off about SKT, but I cannot put my finger on it. And one of the theories I had coming into the World Championship was that they were very weak at pushing their vision line forward when they had an advantage, and I need to go back and watch the game to see if this was true, but the one thing I can say with confidence is every time they got a Baron, they were normally only ever taking tier 2 towers. And I think back to an FPX who get Baron and the base is broken, right? And I just think about the differences in how other teams use Baron versus SKT, and a part of me just thinks that SKT they're too controlled. They're too much of I'm going to call it old school style of let's make sure that everything is set up properly. Let's make sure this is correct and this is correct and all of this. But the fact that G2 did not get a Baron until the final game and they were still 3-1 in that series, I feel just goes to show not only how well G2 create pressure points on the map and make it difficult for you, but I also think it lines up with this idea that SKT with a lead are not this super fast, we don't get Baron, win the game. We get Baron and we suffocate you and we control you. And if you don't allow yourself to get controlled like G2 did, then I think it becomes very difficult to play that style.
Here's the fun fact that our wonderful stats team fed me as we're going into that. So they did get a Baron in that final game, but if they hadn't, they would have been the first team to win a best of 5 without getting a Baron, because every other team in World's history since 2015 when we tracked the stat, if you didn't get a Baron in any of your games, it meant you got 3-0'd. It meant you got clean fucking sweeted. So the fact that they won a series while only getting a single Baron in their final game is super nutso.
I mean, let's also remember the Baron buff in itself is not enough to guarantee winning fights.
Sure.
No, it's not
so
fights.
So what happens
right,
a lot, right, is you get the Baron buff, and if you get to play all 3 lanes with the Baron buffed up minions, yes, you can just like hammer through and take everything, but most of the time against a team like G2 or an FPX will do the same. Like they're gonna they will stop you by fighting you and not by just like splitting up and also defending.
That's fair.
So it doesn't actually give that huge of an advantage. The Elder Drake, on the other hand, if you pick that one up and they try and fight you, then they probably are gonna lose. So in that regard, the Baron buff, because of the aggressiveness from teams, is less impactful. It's not so bad to give it up. Funny enough, G2 actually in quarterfinals had issues getting Baron themselves.
Which,
so maybe it was a good thing.
If you want, a nice, anti-EU narrative, like, can Yankos hit a smite? You can there's like 2 sample sizes where he just hasn't been in the pit, hasn't let Big Clid stole an Elder Dragon from him, just saying. But here's my question, right, for both of you, smarter minds than myself. We had some miserable performances from Effort. That Leona game 3, before Mana got subbed.
I feel bad for him, dude.
Yeah, for sure. And he's not, that
was pressure.
Right? And that's a single bad game, right? So that's a good point. Pressure. Faker, questionable Kiana, mid to late game.
I mean, I think he didn't have the best series overall, in my opinion.
So when we look back at this, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be keen to say, oh, SKT choked, and not the G2 are just the better team. Obviously, they're the better team on the day. That's how winning works, but not the better team overall. So I'm curious, would you consider this an SKT choke, this series?
I mean, okay, so
I'm gonna say no. I'm just gonna jump
no.
in while if you're thinking, because I actually felt like SKT made a lot of mistakes also against Splice. I think they made a lot of mistakes also in group stages. There were a lot of shakiness in mid to late game. People getting caught out before a fight would happen. I know people highlighting Faker, who definitely had some moments. I'm also looking at Khan specifically, who's still really struggling with just general positioning on the map.
Also, just game 1 not building Spear of Shojin. Like, I get it, a lot of the enemy targets, or a lot of the targets on the enemy team were hard to lock down that game. It's hard to get into the back line, but like, that item's just broken. They're literally removing it from the game. They're like, this is going to go.
But he
clearly
was also
you should be building it.
He was a huge part of in the game 3 when it's Renekton versus Camille. We have the blind pick Camille coming for Wonder. I was like, okay, damn, this is like risky. What are they gonna do with it? He's obviously struggling against Renekton. He dies 1v1 on the turret. Then he gets ganked and dies again. I'm like, okay, this Camille is done. He makes a good play mid. Credit to him. And then they go top while all of SKT are literally going bot to do Drake. And this is like number 1 fundamental like macro mistake from a top laner. They will tilt his entire team. The classic, like, okay, we're going Drake, so we're 4-man bot now. And then he's like, he literally runs past his minions top lane, close to the turret, where Wonder is standing, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna fight you now. I was like, no, dude, please, your entire team is bot. And he gave over a kill there, a shutdown, and then Wonder is right back in the game. And these kind of things you just can't do against G2, because they will fight you.
What you have to understand, Martin, is that Khan is no coward, all right? He gets a leading lane, he's diving you. Will it cost his team great advantages?
It did in this case.
Will it potentially ruin entire sections of games? Yeah. But he's no coward. No one can call Khan a coward for that one.
That is true.
I have an answer to your question. You see, SKT have exploitable holes in the mid game, and
Is this your tweet?
Are you actually going to You're going to quote your tweet. You're going to quote your And I watched 10 minutes
of SKT running it down mid lane.
It's a great tweet.
They clearly have exploitable issues in the mid game. I'm not convinced. But
My
in all
favorite-
seriousness, I think that, I mean, like, for me, something has been off about SKT, and one of the debates I've had, like, internally is how much benefit of the doubt do I give them? Because for G2 also had, like, a shaky group stages, like, very shaky. And
They always do that in the best of ones.
I mean, that's fair, but this is the thing, right? It's like, how much weight and value do you put on these performances? Like, in my opinion, the SKT series versus Splice was not, like, full power SKT. So I gave them a lot of the benefit of the doubt, and a lot of the mistakes that they made, I kind of overlooked.
And you just did that based on name, basically.
But I wasn't just based on name, but because it was...
Because you've seen them play better than that.
I've seen them play better, or at least I think I've seen them play
Against
better than
slower
that.
teams.
Yeah,
in
and this is
Korea.
the thing, right? Against slower teams, because, like, the fastest team they played against was Fnatic, who did beat them when they changed their drafts. But then I'm like, oh, maybe it's just a draft issue that
You gotta
they
be
dealt
careful
with.
with hitting the table. I'm just for the
It's
viewers
true,
at home,
true.
because this mic will pick up everything.
But so I guess, like, I do not think SKT choked. I do think G2 is ultimately a better team because I think that they work better together. And something that we talked about on Cooldown was how I think G2 have overall way more experience than this whole roster of SKT does, because a lot of people attribute the brand to the success rather than the actual names. And there's very little experience on this roster. Like, this was Teddy and Effort's first Worlds, I believe.
Yeah.
So, like,
3 out of 5 players first world.
yeah, so you've got to put that into context. Like, if this was a European team where 3 players made towards the first time they made semifinals, we'd be like, fuck yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we were
amazing.
If
celebrating.
Splice
Oh
had
my
beat
word,
FPX,
that's
we would have
insane.
lost.
But of course,
Or
like,
Splice beat
everyone
SKT,
overlooks
I guess.
that, and they immediately go to, well, Teddy's one of the best players in the world, alongside a bot lane that's, like, pretty much undefeated in the LCK. Why would you not rate them highly? And, like, I feel kind of bad for them because they immediately get plastered with this extremely high expectation.
Still
because-
top 4 in the world. Not too bad.
No.
yeah,
For
of
sure.
course.
Not
But, like,
too
this is the
bad.
thing, right? Like, they played very well, and it's hard to, like, they didn't succeed against another very good team. So,
Yes.
like, it's one of those things where, sure, you can point holes, and at the highest level of play, sure, when you make a mistake, it gets punished much harder than it necessarily would. But I guess what I don't want people to forget is that, for me, was an extremely high-level series where both teams were very aware of what they wanted to do, how they wanted to play. And, like, it's easy to point at SKT's mistakes because they lost. G2 was nowhere near perfect.
No, there was obviously. I mean, but there's also a thing, people have to change their perception of what is a great game or like a clean game now. The best teams in the world. So the way I try and look at it is, like, a couple of years ago, correct League of Legends would be like making almost like a 10-step plan.
It's chess. You're playing chess.
Yeah, like, okay, step number 1, I have push and bot, and step number 2, I move into jungle, put wards here, step number 3, I push bot again, step number 4, then I go into mid, and step 5, and you could plan out the whole thing, because you could see the enemy, you had full control, they didn't have champions who could just, like, jump you instantly, like, burst you down, so you knew exactly what was happening, and you just, like, choked them out. I almost feel like now, the maximum you do is, like, a 2-step plan, because by the time you get to that step 2, you're most likely in a situation where a fight could happen, and you have to instantly decide, do we take the fight, what information do we have, and then you make a new 2-step plan all the time, and it leads to games where there are more mistakes. You're not playing with perfect information, high pressure games where a lot of things can kill you very quickly, and also I think the mechanical requirement has gone up a bit, which also means that the players who are succeeding now are typically the very gifted individual players who are also used to taking these 50-50s or these big skirmishes, you know. It's not, no offense to Bengi or whatever, him running around the jungle anymore. It's a guy who picks a Lee Sin and makes the cleanest insect I've ever seen. You know, like in
really
a
clean.
second, he just pulls it off. So you don't have that thing anymore where you can actually play it very slow, and that leads to more mistakes from both teams. I just want to ask real quick, was this the final?
I think so.
I
think so.
I don't want to count.
So
FPX
the sad thing
out.
is, I actually still think FPX would have beaten SKT, in my opinion. But like coming into the tournament, I rated FPX higher because I thought FPX and G2's playstyle was near identical. Like the biggest difference was I think FPX plays a lot more through bot lane than G2 does.
G2 can go top a lot.
Yes, exactly. But ultimately, I think like the idea behind it of a roaming mid laner, a roaming support jungle that often plays through mid to help gain priority so they can play through bot or whatever. Like that's very G2-esque. They're very flexible in their drafts. A little different in their approach to how they're flexible, but they are very creative and unique. And I think that their teamwork is ultimately what makes them a successful team. Not that they have any one single superstar. And so I think that would have given them an advantage against SKT, and I probably would have predicted FPX to beat SKT. So I still think we're in for a just as intense final.
Surely then the next game is bigger.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think
so
the next
this was
game
not the
should.
final.
That's what I think.
I think
just in terms of weight for EU fans, this is
is
probably more. It feels
assuming
more
Europe
impactful.
wins the World Championship, people will talk more about the semifinal than they will the FPX
That's what I
final.
feel. Just because
assuming it's not like a 5-game neck and neck slugfest.
I mean, like, so the one thing that I think many fans were angry at me about was at the beginning of the year, especially after the final, I said this is the best European team that Europe has ever made.
The spring final,
after the spring final.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, they did beat Origen. So like, you have to be the best in the world to do that.
Exactly. And so when I said that, a lot of people were like,
remember which podcast you guys are on.
Exactly. See, I'm helping.
Definitely POG. Definitely a lot of POG going around right now.
And everyone was like, well, Fnatic made it to the final. And I'm like, yeah, but you've also got to remember the path that they had to the final. They avoided both KT and IG and RNG, who are three of the favorites for the tournament.
True.
And they managed to get EDG and Cloud9, who, while having good tournaments, did not have the same level as the other side of the bracket. You can't say the same for G2, who had to go through Damwon, who I had as the 5th best team at the tournament coming in, and they had to go through SKT as well.
And to be fair, when you made that statement after spring finals, none of that had happened yet.
Yes.
So they were probably right to be a little upset with you. With that now having happened, I don't think anyone can debate. And once again, this always comes up, Fnatic fans, the most dominant domestic regular season performance was that perfect split Fnatic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. But this is the best it beat SKT twice.
But like,
what more do you need?
It's just the thing, you can like see the potential in this roster, and like, we knew that they had the 5 best players in every position. It was just a question of would they work well together, because we've made rosters, or the world has made rosters like that before, and they've just crashed
KT.
and burned. And so
I mean, a big part of the success here, I look to Caps. It's the same thing on Fnatic. Like, I've obviously not had Caps on my team. I've not played with Caps, but I have to assume from what we're hearing from players and how we watch him play, that he just makes playing the game easier for everyone else.
That's what Yankos always said, right?
Great. So we have actually a person quoting me there. Like, it's just like, because the amount of pressure he puts down and also the amount of communication I know he brings always offers us so much for everyone else. And he is often the guy who's roaming, maybe less in the series we just had now, but before this he would do that constantly. Other tournaments, he's the one who's getting all the solo kills. If it's like Irelia and these kind of things, like MSI, he did that multiple times. And I think just like, he's now gone from world final to world final. Like, that's absolutely crazy. And there was a big debate last year and also at MSI about him being the best player in the West. Like the player who's individually the best and adds the most to his team. And I think, people will bring up perks, obviously, in this debate. But I think right now, just looking at the last 2 years, I have to give it to Caps. And the impact he's had on his 2 teams. It's absolutely crazy.
I think there's always going to be some intangibles there. And without like sitting in on scrims and seeing what team comms are like, and seeing like what review sessions are like, and seeing like that kind of additional intangible impact, it's hard for me to say. Like, Perks is still, I think, the most successful Western player. And in terms of domestic dominance, he has way more titles. If they win Worlds as well, he's tied on international achievements. I
How
guess.
does Reckless have? His Perks overtaken Reckless now.
I think he matched him.
6.
They're both. I actually think Perks has more than Reckless, but he doesn't have the most because I think someone like Yellowstar, Soaz or Yellowstar are tied with Perks.
I would assume Perks has beaten him because he has 6 titles now in Europe.
He definitely has more than Caps, but
Yeah,
I think he
yeah.
only has one more than Reckless.
Okay. And then Reckless made a world final last year. Perks made an MSI final.
The
Won
irony is-
MSI and now
The
made a
irony
world
is,
final.
Reckless, the one split that he didn't win was when he joined Alliance.
Classic old times, way before you guys got to join
Classic
Europe.
super teams, by the way. This is why G2 is so surprising, is because we saw the Vitality super team. How did that one work out?
True.
The
Fun
Alliance super team.
fact, Alliance obviously did end up winning a split and
Yes.
kind of stopped the Fnatic dominance at
did.
the time. I actually believe, I think it was Elements he joined that
Yeah.
became Alliance.
No, it was
No,
Alliance
Alliance
that became
became
Elements.
Elements.
Oh, Alliance became Elements. Sorry, that was the way.
It's funny because
Which became
so in
Shotgun,
our
I
in our
Yeah.
studio we have a wall that has all the winners on it, and you've just got Fnatic and G2 logos,
And
then a
Alliance.
random
one
Alliance
logo.
We need
I laugh every time I see it.
we're gonna get some different logos on the next couple
right.
of years.
That's right.
I'm
I'm
confident.
When's
I'm
Astralis
confident.
joining the league?
Yeah.
Those guys know how to win.
So we obviously talked a lot about G2 and SKT. I think that is what most people are here for, other than obviously hearing from you guys. FPX versus IG. Do we want to just give it like a couple of minutes?
It was a
Yeah,
great
sure.
series. A lot of fun to watch.
Bloodbath. Great early game from FPX in my opinion.
Yeah.
I was disappointed in IG because I felt like IG were too disconnected between their lanes. Like it was like one guy's hard winning, but then everyone else don't know how to actually use it.
It's also just like you can definitely highlight a lot of like the small issues, but because of the way this series ended and because of the way the SKT series ended, is that people will remember single moments, and it's Faker having a shit series and the Shy inting in final moments, right? Which is insane to think that 2 of probably the greatest players in the world, right? Was arguably the best top laner in the world, the Shy, and Faker, obviously the best player of all time, would I'm not gonna say collapse under the pressure, but would underperform in a game that like matters.
I mean, the Shy did not have a great series overall. I don't think. I think Rookie played a lot better than the Shy did in that series.
Yeah, but it's the same. You can win your lane, and then Doinb's like, see ya. And then he goes top, and he gets a kill, and then he goes bot, gets a kill, and then like...
Doinb's the Pyke mid of mid laners.
Yeah, he is. Like, they had this like Lucian idea. IG were like, yes, I can smack lane with the Lucian. I'm like...
Who are you smacking?
You're like 30 CS up, but you're not actually killing a turret. You're not then going to move with somewhere else and kill another turret. You're actually just pretty strong for yourself. And then, 3 people from the other team are very strong, so it doesn't actually matter.
Doinb hard counters Kleptomancy because he just doesn't lane.
Yeah, you don't get
Problem
any
solved.
gold.
You're not gonna make any money.
Yeah.
Enjoy those plates. You'll get nothing else.
But the other thing that I think a lot of fans don't appreciate is what Crisp does for that team. And the problem is it's a really difficult thing to convey because it's not inherently obvious what he does. But like one thing that you'll see him do is one of his best champions is Nautilus, right?
Yeah.
But he will reset before his AD carry, and the enemy team will give that information, which means that there is a period of time when he is missing on the map, and you cannot guarantee that he is not mid lane. And the thing is, right, like, that inherently makes it difficult for people to pressure Doinb, because if you think, in this window, I'm fine to trade against Doinb, fun fact, it's probably not just Doinb in that mid lane.
Schrodinger's Chris.
Like,
That's how you look in the box. You don't know. He's
but it's-
both alive and dead.
But I would highly encourage people to like watch how Crisp will try and base before the enemy support, which means that the ally support can't always match it, and there's a window that you have to respect. Crisp might be missing, he could be here, and I have to respect that, which means you can't always dominate the lane, and because you can't dominate the lane, Doinb then like, haha, well I'm off to Crisp's lane, woo! And then you end up in this really annoying thing where like they use pressure very well and they play as a team very well, and then you add Tian onto that just adds the combination
And
to
the first rotation Nautilus,
Yeah.
who builds Proto Build, and then like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, like,
That's where I think we're gonna get really dirty in this series is like mid lane and mid lane counter picks. Because also like I don't think Ryze gets played in this series. Like I think it was bold to trade Ryze back and forth between Faker and Cass, but like I don't see.
I reckon because it's a series, they might for one game give it to Doinb. They might
Because
be like,
Doinb
there are
kills
good picks
people.
against
Faker
him.
wins
Yeah.
game, but
Even
Doinb
Veigar
kills a lot
against
of
it.
people.
You know, like there are good picks against it you can pull out in a series for sure if you want to try and because like that's always the thing, you know, you leave it open game 1, it gets first pick by FPX. you actually have a good answer, you win that first
Maybe
game.
you get Zyra Khan as an answer.
Sure, it always sets up, a lot of things in the series. So, I mean, I guess we're already talking about G2 versus FPX now. Like, let's just get the predictions for the final. This is an EU podcast, but I don't assume there's an FPX.
I mean, I'm more inclined to go G2. I think that one has greater chance of going to 5 games than the SKT one, because I genuinely believe FPX is way better at closing games with a lead. I know they showcased some throws against IG, but I think that's more... I mean, you could make the argument that what IG did to FPX, G2 did a similar, slightly less aggressive version to SKT, but I just have a little bit more confidence in FPX ability to use a lead. So I think that we're more likely to be about whoever gets early game lead, influence of junglers.
Yeah.
But I am more inclined to be on the G2 side of things.
I'm definitely on the G2 side of things. What was your score before I go?
I would say 3-2. I think it'll be 5 games.
So I agree. I'm 3-2.
But I haven't rewatched the games yet, so this will change. Just need people to know that.
This has the potential. This has the potential to be like the shortest 5-game series of all time. Because while we saw a lot of very, let's say, controlled early games, not insanely explosive in the SKT G2 series, I think that both FPX and G2 will fight at a much sooner in the game.
Too.
And while they'll both close sooner, I think you'll see, instead of seeing the action at the end of the game like we did in this one where it was like 1 or 2 deciding team fights, you'll see all that action early, and then it'll be a question of can they close.
I would say like for the first 8 minutes, I wouldn't be surprised if nothing happens.
Sure.
Between 8 and 16, that's when I think like, oh, you've got level 6 now? Okay, then we'll
These
fight.
are going to be the games where
Doinb has boots? Alright.
Who's ever casting World Final is going to have like a nice 4 minutes of fill before Baron spawns, and there's like a 6k gold lead, but they clearly can't break the base yet, and you're like...
Trying to get those graphics in,
Carol put in every graphic possible. Call in the stats team for more graphics. We need help. We got to fill here.
How many more baby stats do we have? Someone give me baby stats. What a Doinb look like as a baby.
What are you? Are you going G2 or you believe in FPX?
So I mean, right now, without having rewatched the games yet, I am also on G2. However, I do think some people underrate.
100%.
Super
FPX.
close. Super close.
And especially because they were like, oh, the game was so ugly against IG. I'm like, yeah, if both teams are willing to run headfirst into each other, it's not going to be pretty. Like, it will not be pretty.
It's also, Frost has brought this up, these are teams that have played against each other. These are teams that play in the same league. We don't know if they scrim against each other, but they have more tape and have watched more tape of each other probably than anyone else in this tournament. And that series is just always going to look different than G2 versus FPX.
Like
we've
G2
had many
Fnatic
years of...
always looks different to what G2 versus someone else and Fnatic versus someone else.
Versus Fnatic, it's 5 games versus anyone else.
It's not.
We're out here crushing dreams, people.
It's definitely not going to be an easy series, as some people are predicting, the way I see it. But I do think G2 will be world champions. They will complete the Grand Slam, which, for people not aware, it's obviously winning both your domestic splits, MSI. I'm adding Rift Rivals to it.
Don't add Rift
Why
Rivals.
not?
No one wants Rift Rivals.
And the world final. Yeah,
What
then
if-
we helped as
okay,
well.
Here's my question. All-Star ticket announcement came out. We know All-Star's happening. What if they lose? What if they're... I don't know how these restrictions are going to work. I'm assuming only 2 players from a single team can go, as it has been in the past.
So you mean
what
All-Stars in the Grand
if
Slam?
what if they lose All-Stars?
What if
it
Cax
disaster?
doesn't
not
defend
count?
his 1v1 title? Deficio.
Another
Does that not
disaster.
count as the Grand Slam? Just a question.
Who won the best spot in the West at MSI?
That was
Rift
Vicky
Rivals?
and Perks. That was Vicky and Perks.
Was it? So they even won that?
Yeah.
Man, they're taking everything.
Just every year the G2 bottom lane was best
G2.
bottom
But
lane.
imagine doing it before Korea. The funniest thing is, SKT actually did Spring, MSI, Worlds, and they lost Summer.
They lost some. That really sucks.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't have done that, you know? Then you could have gotten it. All right, so we obviously talked a lot about finals and so on. I want to get some topics on that we know that Reddit will love to hear about.
Clickbait. Okay.
So we get a bit of clickbait. My first question is, Doinb, is he the worst mid laner in the tournament?
No.
I feel like his
No,
lanes
he's
are
not.
terrible. But, I mean, like...
No, I'm not even memeing it. I think people are allowed
Absolutely
to have
not.
their points.
Okay, so I on my YouTube channel, Vedius Casting, you can go check it out. On there, I released a long
I'm gonna
show.
ban you soon from hitting this table because I don't actually know how it's gonna sound. I don't want to stop the recording to check, and I don't want to read every comment being like, "What's this like knocking sound all the time?"
You could just dip the
Every
time.
I commented on how I think Doinb could be a potential weakness for FPX because his laning was weak. His laning was just weak. And the funny story I heard from why have I blanked on her name? Kelsey Moser. Where she was telling me about if you watch his pro view, he will stand still in mid lane to track summoner spell timers.
Yeah.
And there's this one example against Rookie where he lost half his HP literally tracking summoner spells for his team. Right? So like he's a team player, but he just wasn't that good in lane. And while I think that his laning has been like fine at Worlds, like he's not someone that smashes you in lane. That's not how he wins games.
Yep.
But the value that he brings to his team fighting, like there are so many other. It's like the stats thing, you know. Like if you're gonna put points into like intelligence and charisma and all that, he's like team play, roaming, charisma, 10 points. Yeah.
He knows how to work a crowd. That man.
Yeah. Speech 100, Doinb.
Typing skills.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like. You can say that he's probably not the best laner out of the semi-finalists, and like I would agree with that statement. But to say that he's not one of the best mid laners in the world, I just think is foolish.
Also, his team beat Rookie, and you talked about if you felt like Rookie had a solid series, and it's like if you're a player that has not yet lost to Caps or Perks, they literally put a super team together to beat this man. Of course, he's never made it to a final that they've been at, so it's not really an argument anymore. But important to remember that Rookie is still a monster. It's just not as important, and I think his Rumble game. Mid was so fantastic to me. Was so like specifically alt usage because Rumble alt is one of those alts where like teams always get caught up with the on paper this alt is insane. We win every team fight with Rumble alt.
It hits one person.
And then every Rumble alt in the history, like 80%, probably 90% of Rumble alts in pro play are absolute dog shit or are used to clear waves. And this man hit so many good alts. And yes, there were some that weren't followed up on, but the placement was always super clutch. The fight timing was always super good. And like until he gets blasted out of lane and that actually costs him like a game where that's a consistent weak point, I'm not going to believe that that's significant.
Yeah, you might see a problem if, let's say, the bot lane is getting mega pressured. Crisp cannot move.
Yeah.
Let's say they don't have a winning jungle matchup and no help can arrive. And then suddenly that Lucian mid with 40 CS up is actually taking the turret and taking plates. And I think it's important, obviously, as a pro player, a lot of times, like you're rating based on what are you playing against, like especially in the lane phases when you have your 1v1.
Yeah.
He's not dominating there. That's not where he's a superstar player. But I was going to talk about this on cast and we had constant fights and I had to drop it again. The skills that he brings, where he's like obviously S tier, is like in the communication and in reading the state of the game and like explaining to his team very quickly what's the next step, what should we do. He's also like, so often in the comms you can hear, like people are asking him like, can we invade? He's like, no. Or he's like, yes. They go for the nexus in a tight moment. He goes like, listen to me, just listen to me. You know, like he calls the team in and he's the one who's making the key calls there. And I can just say, from a scouting perspective, finding a player who has the game knowledge, who has the communication skills, who's willing to put it all on him with the calls, and who can still, to a certain level, not fall too far behind against the world-class players.
It's like the LPL high, right?
It's like, yeah, sure. It's like almost impossible to find.
What he brought to that cloud.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, back in the day, yes. Back in the day,
the more recent years of performance always make that one. But early high, yes.
But you can't find players like this. And
you don't make them.
Finding a mechanically gifted player is a lot easier. Obviously not to the shy level or whatever, but a good player is easier than finding a person who has this skill set.
And in this era of League of Legends, if someone comes up and says, oh, this guy, he's really smart, I go, because that means he's bad with his hands. That means, oh, he's good, he knows how to play the game, but he can't push his buttons. And the thing is he's like the last, I feel like.
And the problem with Doinb is like, he plays Nautilus mid,
Silence. Oh, sure. Small champ, yeah.
It's just like,
sure. But like, that's better than knowing your weaknesses. It's better than.
But he also plays Yasuo and so on.
And pops off on the rise. Yeah, not to say that he has 100% poor mechanics.
You're
but
right,
like, in the modern era of League of Legends, since the death of Tracker's Knife, whatever people wanted to credit to, since the introduction of tower plates, whatever, like you have to be really good mechanically. And so the fact that a player in our finals is considered not as strong mechanically, but over indexes so highly in all those other areas,
it's amazing.
Is stunning. Because like, yeah, I just like the last 2 years, I have not gotten excited over the quote unquote smart player because they just never show up. Like they haven't been able to convert those reputations domestically, internationally. Like, you know, Mata, smart player, wasn't able to do anything today. Doinb, smart player, in the World Finals, very likely to carry his team.
Player.
Nuke smart player. Mithy, smart player. I was trying to save him the podcast.
They are smart players.
They are. We're not fighting
but it doesn't matter. It doesn't win you games to be the smart guy anymore.
It's a lot of games in spring. So let's
How
move
many
on
did
to
we win in the best of
another.
5?
Let's go on to another.
I got another
clickbait
controversial.
one.
Yeah, controversial.
Oh,
Top
clickbait?
10 players at Worlds.
So,
Go.
so now after we have watched all the games, we do like current top 10. At
No,
Worlds.
after post Worlds, top 10. Who's your go?
Can we do top
You
5?
don't have to
10 is
order it.
So many. 10
You don't
is
have
so
to,
many.
You don't have to order it, but just give me 10 players that you would put in that list.
Tien is in there.
Yes.
Cass
Yep.
is in there.
Yes.
I mean, the Shy's still in there.
Yes.
Like, let's not kick him out.
Yep.
Who else do we have?
What about Uzi?
Perks
Would you
is in
put
there?
Uzi in there?
No.
I think Uzi played well individually.
Yes.
I don't think necessarily
I
he
think
was able
they
to do a
have-
whole lot
they-
with his team.
In
But
my
how is that different from the Shy, who literally doesn't
So
play?
I mean, so if you told me if I had like a draft of players, you
Yeah.
know, from Worlds, and I had to like put a team together, like I would strongly consider having Uzi as top 10.
here's my question. If a single player, a star player, let's say like Faker is like really good, but SKT goes out in groups because literally everyone else on his team is running it down, would you put him in the running for top 10? Because like I wouldn't. I would just say they
This
have
is my
to
question,
make it
because
to
this is where I was
bracket
leading
stage.
to. Would you put Faker in your top 10 at Worlds?
Well, but that was a theoretical example. Actual Faker just ran it down at a
No,
serious.
but seriously, like his whole
Top
Worlds
10
performance,
also
would
lets
you put
get
him for top?
Caps, Perks, Tian, Doinb would be in it too.
Yeah.
So that's
Crisp?
That's 4 already. I mean, Crisp is definitely the best performing support. I think
Yeah.
that's fair to say.
But maybe not in your top 10 players at Worlds, maybe not.
It's all,
Because it's limited how much he can as a support show individually,
Sure,
right?
sure,
Like I
sure.
think he's obviously playing
So you got
insanely
Tian
well.
Doinb,
Rookie the Shy would be
Rookie
in
the
it.
Shy, and you've got Perks Caps, right?
Yeah.
So that's 6. SKT, any of them in your top 10 performances?
I really like Teddy.
Because like I'm not against putting Teddy in that top 10.
Teddy was really good. Teddy
Like,
almost like
he's had a great tournament.
he had
overall.
so many fights where if like one skill shot
I would
from
not
G2
put
misses,
Teddy.
he could win.
I would not put Teddy in.
Not in your top 10.
No.
What Clid? Clid's surely
He's
got to be in the
definitely
top
in.
10. Yeah.
He's for
Yeah,
sure.
kick
got-
flex.
so we're at
Cleanest
7
mechanics
right now.
ever. I think you said it.
Wasn't that 8?
No, we're at 7 because we didn't put Teddy in.
Do we have
We've
a
got
pen
7.
or phone?
Wait, I'm just thinking because like the other Griffin players, any of them you would consider putting in? Maybe a Tarzan.
Based on groups, Tarzan obviously was amazing.
Yeah. but
His first half was not that great though. If you only base on his second half, sure, but all
Well, that's kind of what
groups.
stands out, right? I mean, I guess you can have a big debate around the next couple of
Kobe,
names.
would you
there.
put him in top 10?
I would not put him top 10, but I do think Kobe had a good tournament.
The other ones would be Damwon. Perhaps Showmaker was quite underwhelming in the
In
quarterfinals. Same for Noguri, but like to be fair, the bot lane then stepped up, which was pretty cool. But I probably wouldn't put them in top
And
I
10.
think there's a
Yeah,
nice little
too.
bubble of names right there. Like you can easily put in Uzi and Faker and these kind of names into your top 10 still. I think you are obviously giving them a lot based on name. I think Uzi
Yeah.
individually is a top 10 player.
Yeah.
God, he tried
But
so
again,
hard.
the
He had such
evaluation
good
is
team
on
fights,
this
you just couldn't
world.
do
That's
it.
why it's spicy. That's why it's clickbaity on it.
Yeah, we don't have to answer it. We just need people to click on it, and then we already got them. You know?
We got.
You can write your top 10
Yeah.
list, and you can
Yeah,
post
you
it
can
to the
just-
YouTube channel.
you can quote it, and I'll just go Faker, not a top
Top
10
10
player.
player.
Yeah.
And you can just do it. Faker, not a top 10 player.
All
Exclamation
right,
mark,
I
exclamation
got
mark,
another
exclamation mark.
clickbait one.
Yeah.
Korea as a region.
Ooh.
2 years in a row, they have disappointed us.
Semifinals at Worlds is not a disappointment.
2
They have
years in a row.
let us
compared
down.
to what we're used to.
Yes.
Korean dominance completely dead.
Yep.
Korea now overrated.
Yes.
Korea are definitely overrated.
Depends who's rating them. Because the European.
I mean, we had a lot of people who saw Damwon,
Yeah,
Griffin,
no,
SKT,
Korea-
and players and said these guys
Yeah,
are
but
going to
to
win
be
for
fa-
sure.
so
They're
the-
going to go all the way.
So
you
the
know?
thing is, for me, the reason why I had Griffin rated pretty low in my power rankings, I had them at like
Going into
9 or
playoffs,
8.
into Worlds?
No, into Worlds. I had them at an 8 or 9, right? And then I had Damwon at 5. But the reason I had Damwon at 5 was because to me, they were the new generation of LCK that was fast, they were aggressive, they were much more of the play style that I think was the better way to play. And then, of course, when they got into the quarterfinals, that's not how they played. And I think a lot of that did come down to experience. They're a very young team, and I'd like to think that another year of playing together, if they keep with this style and they don't conform to how the rest of the LCK plays, then sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that the LCK is too slow. They need more teams like what Damwon does, and they need a team like G2, a team like FBX. They need more of this LPM
They need
mentality.
SKT to keep doing what they did at Worlds. Play that like more aggressive.
But even
quick
then,
style.
like, this is why I'm looking forward to the VOD review, because like with the leads that SKT had, they should have been able to be more dominant. And I don't know why they weren't. Maybe it's a G2 thing, maybe it's an SKT thing. I can't say for certain right now. But I do feel like it's a safe bet to say that I remember the finals, SKT, even with overwhelming leads, still took 30 minutes to end games, compared to FPX and G2, who were both ending games in like 25 minutes. So like, I just think a team's ability to use a lead and snowball is different in Europe and LPL, and the reality is if you can't close fast, you give more time for teams to answer back, and the teams at the top end will find a way back into the game.
And here's the thing. I still think that Korea as a whole is, at worst, the second best region.
Okay.
Because
China first.
Probably still first as a region. Because while G2 are fantastic, I still think everyone else is pretty far behind. Right? And G2 is so far an outlier. Like in years to come, I hope that's not the case. Summer Finals gave us kind of the indication that it might not have been the case, that Fnatic would have been different, and Fnatic didn't really show up this world. So we'll see what happens in the future. So I'll say Korea is overrated, but not by a huge margin. What felt so good about today's series was the fact that I had no idea who was going to win. And maybe if you're an SKT fan, you're like, ooh, SKT all the way. If you're a G2 fan, you're like G2 all the way. But if you were anyone else in the middle, you're like, this is the first time in history that I've thought it was 50-50 for a Korean EU best of 5. Short of like some of the... It's like,
I mean, MSI maybe had the same feeling with SKT G2.
But that's huge. And I think that's a fair spot to put it, because yes, they've all dropped out, but they also still got first in their groups. And yes, that is best of 1. It's ultimately not the biggest deciding factor. Korea is still, as a region, very good. Is their best team better than our best team? Hell no, not right now. It's not. We beat all 3. Well, we kind of lost to Griffin. Technically, Griffin beat us. But we beat Damwon, we beat SKT, and that's the most you can ask for. And for the LPL, it seems like in a similar position. Will they have the best team in the world at the end of this tournament? I don't think so. I think it'll be G2. But did they get 2 teams very far in? Yeah, absolutely.
But I will say, like, with regards to LCK being the second best region, Grab said it in a PGL we had once, where their teams just have the best fundamentals. And the reality is LCK will probably always do well at Worlds because they're the closest to, like, League of Legends is pretty much a figured out game for the most part. Yeah. There are variabilities, but like this idea behind how to use pressure, how to correctly use wards, like how to punish people who shouldn't be in the area of the map that they are in.
Right.
Like LCK is the best at that baseline.
Can I add
level.
Real quick?
Yeah.
It's figured out when you have perfect information.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
But you don't have that in the game, which is why it will never be fully
Sure, but the baseline fundamental level in
Yes.
Korea is on average higher, right? Because like what we can say with confidence is even a team like Jin Air would probably understand.
I'm gonna put that in the title because people are gonna think we're talking about Jin Air beating G2.
But even a team like Jin Air, you would imagine has better basic understanding of League than a team like XL would. And you would naturally just give them an advantage because the region that they play in is much more about thinking about the game rather than necessarily being the best individual players at the game. And I'm hoping, and like you contrast that to LPL where they're just like team fighting all the time. Execution is way more important than necessarily being smart about the game.
If you're bad, they kill you in lane.
Yes.
At level 1, at
That's
level 2, they dive you. They don't.
Didn't even sit in fountain thinking about macro.
Exactly.
They shouldn't have been able to make that play.
But then the ultimate decision, and so this is the thing, so teams that are inconsistent and do make these small mistakes and can't like push their leads effectively, like Korea will always have an advantage because they play the smart man's league, and on average that will be the safer bet. However, it's not an assured bet, and it's not going to win you titles anymore, and that's the most important thing. Do I think LCK is a bad region? Not even remotely. Do I think that they are the region most likely to produce the best team in the world now?
No.
I think LPL is way more likely to produce a world-class, like best in world-class team.
World champion.
World champion.
That's the important thing.
Or like an MSI champion.
Yeah, sure.
I think the
An
LPL,
international champion.
Yeah, the LPL is more likely to produce one than Korea is.
And here's the thing. I don't think, like, fundamentals are important, and I think the thing is that people will look at the quote-unquote death of the LCK, the lack of perfect information in the game, but, like, fundamentals of League really haven't changed a ton over the year. You still set up Baron the same way you set it up. Yes, you no longer have pink wards, so you use control wards. You still value lane pressure. The difference is it's more important now because they literally pay you to get lane pressure with tower plates, right? But at the end of the day, all of those things are still valuable. The game will change in small ways that adjust the way you play. The minion pushing changes, affecting how you split push it, how you stack a wave. But at the end of the day, all the same core fundamentals are always valuable. The question is, can you as a region and as a player adapt to what is actually good? And that's kind of where it feels like LCK has struggled, despite the fact that they can see on paper and in theory the best way to play the game, they're still not able to make that leap to take risks.
It's no best way anymore. It's all open.
I mean, the funny thing is, Martin, we do a pretty good job of identifying when that's not a great way to play League of Legends.
And yet, I mean, an IG, you can look at 20 things they do in the game most of the time and say that's not correct, but it worked anyway. Until
it's
then,
so annoying.
Obviously, they played FPX right here. Okay,
and here's the thing.
I was gonna try and wrap this up very soon. Is it clickbaity?
It's clickbaity, kind of. You can't call games clown fiestas anymore.
At least you have to be more specific.
I think if you're not certain, don't call it a clan fiesta. That's my point. Because back in the day, it was if no one is dead, it's a great game of League of Legends. Thank you, Monte Cristo. If everyone is dying, it's a clown fiesta. And now the reality is, in games where everyone is dying can be a fantastic game. It can also be straight Monkey Town. In a game where no one is dying, it could be a fantastic game. It could be straight up like, why is no one fighting? Why is no one doing anything? And I think it's just fair. You have to look a lot closer, you have to look a lot harder, and you can't just go, oh wow, lol, clown fiesta. You better be posting a reason.
Yeah, I mean, like, think back to like a game where someone would like lock in a Z mid, and then they would get like early kills in the mid lane, and then they don't do anything for like 40 minutes. Like, you could argue that that's another version of a clown fiesta.
That's
true.
You
could argue that.
I would argue that, but thank God. I mean, good news for you is you've got a mid laner like Nuke Ducks. That's never gonna happen.
That would never happen.
So Worlds is super exciting, and I'm very happy to see G2 make the final. They play FPX. It will be on Sunday. It's gonna be it's gonna be absolutely insane show in Paris. It's the same arena we had the LEC or EULCS
My
finals
first ever final.
When G2 played against Misfits in
That was an
2017,
awful final.
and they 3-0 stomped them, and it was actually a really bad final. But it's a great arena. It's gonna be
Super
extremely loud. Yeah. I think we're all super hype about it. I need one last question in here. It has to be super short answer, so I can put it at the very end. I'll just put what the question is, and then like put like a little dash to say this is what we talk about till the end. Can Jin Air beat G2?
No.
Boom, there it is. We're done for this.
Unless they do the thing where you unplug their monitors and show them in real life, like hire the mob or something.
G2 versus FPX starting soon. Thank you for being part of the podcast, Vedius and Drakos, and congratulations on the first World Semifinal.
Shout your YouTube channel.
Check out my YouTube channel, Vedius Cast.
Daniel Drakos. One word.
Bye.